Hi, this is Jennifer from Asterandanne, and today I'm going to talk with you about our Georgia clutch. This is how it comes, and on our packaging we have got some examples of ways that you can embellish them, but I'm going to show you just a few ways that you can embellish them before we unpack and see what you get inside our kit. So this is one that I have done using some machine embroidery. Our kits actually work really well with machine embroidery, and as you can see it looks really effective. Simple to do. I won't go into all the details on how to do that today, but just that you can see that you can do it, and you can decorate all of it. Another way that you can embellish them is with just simple yo-yos, and this one I have used some silk fabric and pop some leaves in there to create like a little floral design. So yo-yos are a simple thing to create and a great way to embellish. This is another one where I have just done some machine applique. I've used some 12 weight thread so it really stands out, and that's just using the simple heart shapes there. And another one is just hexagons that we use. Hexagons are a simple shape once again, and this one I've done some extra applique on them with decorative stitches. That's just a few of the ways that you can embellish our Georgia clutch. On our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, etc., we have other examples of how you can embellish them. You're only limited by your imagination, so we like to say that our kits are designed by us but made by you, so you put your own personal stamp on them. So that's just some of the things that we can do there, and we will continue on with unpacking shortly. Now let's take a look at what we get inside our Georgia clutch. So open it up. Firstly, we have our main felt piece, which is this lovely long piece of felt. So all pre-cut, comes with a zipper pocket already stitched in. That's that. It has a front facing, and also our side gussets. Our gussets already come once again with the darts already stitched, so you don't have to do those. So the gussets has instructions with pictures. We have our crossbody strap, and we have in here our strap attachers. So we stitch those onto our kit and then our handle just snaps on. I have a magnetic closure, some pins and some needles, and that's everything in there. So from here we are good to go to start doing some embellishing. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do with our Georgia clutch after we have finished embellishing, and as you've seen before, you can do so many different things with our Georgia clutch. So after it's embellished, then we need to attach on our magnetic closure. So easy enough to do, just fold in half and mark the center. So you can either do this by hand or by machine. You'll see in some videos I might do it by hand and some I will do it by machine. So there's a mixture out there as to ways to do it. I like to allow about close to 1 centimetre from the edge, because we do need to stitch this on to our front later. So we don't want it to be right at the very edge, then it makes it a little tricky. So we're looking at about 1 centimetre in from the edge, and then we can just start stitching it on. So I find it easy enough just to hold to get started, And all of our hardware comes with the holes already pre-punched, so as you can see, those holes, and I'm just going to follow those all the way around and just filling in every hole. I don't tend to get terribly creative here, but you can if you want to. You could certainly use different coloured threads. You can do a more decorative stitch if you would like to. I tend to just keep it quite simple, but that's just me. And that's all we need to do here is just stitch it around. Sometimes if you find that it's a little hard to get through some of the holes, it's a good idea to just take the needle through and just make sure that there's nothing blocking the hole. Or you just like me and just keep missing it, I don't know. The thread that I'm using is wonderfil spaghetti thread, and it is a 12 weight thread. It's Egyptian long staple cotton. It's a really lovely smooth thread, and being the 12 weight, it's nice and thick. I am using 2 strands here. Another thread that I do use sometimes is Wonderfil's Home Deck, but this time I'm doing spaghetti. And getting there. Obviously much faster to do it by machine, but really depending on the look that you want to have. Almost there. Yeah. There we go. When you get your groove on, we're good. And there we have it. So I've just knot in the back. And I like to always just take my needle back through the felt and come out and bury that. Not that you're going to see it anyway. That's it. So that's that side done. Now we need to work out where we're going to put the other side. So we'll have a look at that. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we pin our facing into place, and that's going to help us work out where we need to put the other side of our magnetic closure. So just even up those edges, feel and make sure that they are together. You only need just 1 pin on each side because we're just holding it in place while we work out where we need to put this side. I'll pop that on there. And the bit that I always like to do is I check where the top part of the front of my Georgia clutch is, even with the end of the facing. So you can see there, we're just marrying that up in where the indentation is. So I check that there on both sides, make sure they're even, and then I've got my magnetic the other side there, and then there we are. That's where we need to stitch this closure, and we do this usually at the end after we have embellished everything, because then we're stitching the closure on top of whatever our decorating is. So pin that there, and now we just need to stitch it on in the same way. Okay, after we've stitched on our magnetic closure, the next thing we need to do is stitch into place our strap attachers. And with these, I personally like to line them up so that I'm looking at having where our indentation is, when that folds over, I have got part of the actual clip that sits just there, and that's what I like to try and line mine up with. I also keep in mind that we do need to stitch in our gusset piece, and so I don't want to be too close over to the edge either. So here I would look at being in about nearly 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch in from the edge, and just keeping it kind of visual with the top of the indentation there, and using the same thread as before, coming up, and just be mindful of the pocket on the inside. I'm coming up here, and I'm going to go back in here. Now these ones where the hole is, you do have the underside here, so you actually need to take the needle off on a bit of an angle to go down on that side. And as a general rule, I like to come through to the other side here, and I will come up here and go back into this hole. Oops. Here. Pulling that fairly firmly, and then I'm going to go through the center of our attacher in there, and I'm going to go back down again in this side just to make the top of it there super strong, and then we would just go through and stitch the rest of the attacher on in place. Although it's quite simple to do, I just like to secure the top there, and we just continue working our way around. Once again, we've got the pre-punched holes, so they make it easy to go through. You can of course do this by machine if you prefer, but for this one, for this video, we're doing it by hand today. Just work the way around. The thread that I'm using today also is Wonderfil's spaghetti thread. It's a 12 weight Egyptian long staple cotton thread. I like it because I'm using 2 strands, and we're getting a good bulky look, which is what I wanted. Because if you stitch it on by machine, then you can just use a 50 weight thread. As I mentioned earlier with the magnetic closure, I don't always tend to do anything super fancy here, but you can of course use, you know, a variegated thread or do something. I personally don't tend to, but that's entirely up to you. You can put your own stamp on it. Okay, we're almost there. And done. And the other thing with stitching it on where I have suggested is that it tends to just be under the pocket, and then you don't see any of our stitching either. I will talk later about lining. So we'll just go through and thread it through, cut our thread away, and that is our first attacher done. Okay, so now here we are at the sewing machine, and the first thing I'm going to do is stitch our facing together. So I've left it pinned in, so we will stitch that together, and this is where construction super quick. Let's get the machine ready to go. It's going to take a moment to wake up. And the thread that I like to use is this one that's called Designer, and that is Wonderfil's Designer. It is a 40 weight polyester thread, and I like this particular colour, which is colour number 127. It blends super well. So if I have done some embellishing and I don't want any thread lines or anything to stand out, this is my go-to thread. Sometimes, depending on what I have done as far as embellishing goes, I might do a contrasting thread in a heavier weight and do something that way. It really just depends. And of course you can hand sew it all together. This one I have hand sewed the facing on all the way around, and I also hand stitched in the gusset as well. But for today we're stitching it by machine. I usually use a 3 length stitch, and that's the only adjustment that I would make, and then just stitching it on. Now, I am using an open toe foot here as well. Sometimes, depending on, you know, maybe I would have changed to a zipper foot. So it really just depends on how close I have my closure. So there is our front facing stitched on. So that was quick. And the next thing to do is to pop in our gussets. Okay, so for stitching in the gusset pieces, I always like to stitch the body piece onto the gusset piece. So I'll show you what I mean in a moment. I was just starting to pin from the top side of the clutch, and by doing it this way we are stitching the body onto the gusset, and that then gives us maneuverability to pop around the corners here. So I'm going to go to the other side where I've got the indentation here, and just matching up my gusset piece there, pin that in place and just work back. And it's where we just need to pop in a couple of pins, but what we're doing is we're squashing the body piece around so that we can work it around the curve of the gusset. So just take a moment to get the pins in place, because that certainly makes it easier. You can see that's where the felt is. It's very forgiving and very maneuverable. I think that's a word. So just pop one more pin in there. And so now I've got that all pinned into place, and then we will just stitch it. So same thread as before, same stitch length, and we just go. Okay. So this is where I like to fold the felt. So you can move that down, fold it out of your way as you're stitching around. Just nice and easy. Fold over again. And one gusset done. So you can see that sits nicely around the curves, all married up perfectly. And now we just need to repeat that, do the same for the other side. Okay, so there we have it. There is our Georgia clutch all put together. You can see that was relatively easy. The only thing left to do now is pop on our strap, and this is our crossbody strap, and super simple, just hook it on. So this, the Georgia clutch has been designed so that if you want to use it without the strap, you can just take them off. You can also not put them on at all if you want to use it as a little clutch purse that way. But of course, if you want to use it as a crossbody bag, then that is just the way to go. So that's the Georgia clutch, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, you can actually line it. I apologize for the sound. This is one that I said that I had completely made by hand, and I have made a lining, so you can do that. With this one, because I have stitched the buttons all over it, I did take out the zipper pocket first and then stitched all the buttons on, and then I put the lining in, and before I stitched the lining in, I popped the pocket back in, so you can see it there. So they are possible to line. All of our kits you can easily line as well, and see this one I have put the strap attachers on there and added in the buttons all around it. So hopefully you'll have lots of fun making your own Georgia clutch. As I said, super quick, easy to put together, and a whole lot of fun to make. So happy embellishing!